Hello everyone. Now you will hear a brief retelling of the film Desert Flower. Its plot is based on real events. Waris Dirie is a 13-year-old shepherd girl from Somalia. Her mother divided a flatbread into small pieces and distributed it to all the children. Waris promises her younger brother that she will never leave him alone. The story jumps to the future. Adult Waris is wandering the streets of London, then enters a trendy boutique and picks a bag full of accessories. When the saleswoman approached her and threatened to call security, she immediately ran away and hid in the restroom. In the stall, she smiles while looking at her passport. A tearful saleswoman burst into the restroom and encountered the Somali woman again, who had forgotten to lock the door. Waris knows only a few words in English, mostly memorized phrases, even though she has been living here for 6 whole years. She follows the English woman who darted into the elevator. "How are you?" Marilyn tries to escape from a strange girl who is persistently following her for some reason. Waris was left alone, and finding a piece of cardboard was forced to spend the night under the open sky. The girl picks up change and eats from the trash. She saw her acquaintance on the bus and followed her again. The girl took pity on the dirty, scruffy Somali woman and let her stay for one night. But Marilyn lives in a boarding house and the administrator doesn't want to let the homeless girl in. Today's weather is a sunny downpour. Waris spouts another phrase. Pushpa finally agreed to let the Somali girl in, as long as she doesn't write on the carpet. Grateful, Waris kissed Pushpa's hand and called her mom. While Marilyn was sleeping, Waris cleaned the entire room and made coffee. An English woman wrote down an address where Vari could try to find a job and gave her a jacket as a gift. In the hallway, they ran into the manager Neil, who was interested in Jigal with exotic looks. Waris got a job as a cleaner in a cafe. A visitor reading a book stared at her. He noticed the girl putting food leftovers into her pocket. The stranger turned out to be the photographer Terry Donaldson and gave the pretty African girl his business card. Waris almost threw it away, but Terry asked her not to. The girl returned to the boarding house. This time she was ready to pay for a night stay. Pushpa agreed when Waris again called her mom. She is shy about showing her body, so she undresses in the shower stall. She is doing something unclear there. Marilyn decided to play a prank on her friend and stole her clothes. Waris is cooking food and learning English. She doesn't know her birth date, only that she was born in the rainy season. Neil looked into the room and started hitting on the Somali girl. Marilyn dreams of becoming a dancer but received a letter with another rejection. To lift her friend's spirits, Waris agreed to go with her to a nightclub. There, she locked eyes with a dark-skinned guy. Harold immediately approached to meet Waris Dahar Masharta Muhammad Suleiman Deri, but she goes by just Waris. Her name means desert flower. Harold took off the girl's puffer jacket and offered her to dance. The guy came from New York. Waris liked him, but suddenly she got scared of something and ran out of the club. She can't get into the room. Marilyn is having fun with some man there. A decent woman doesn't do this. The frowning Waris reproaches her neighbor. Only a circumcised woman is a good woman, added the Somali woman. Marilyn doesn't understand what's being discussed and asks to see. Waris lowered her pants a bit. "They cut everything off and then sewed it," asks the English woman with tears in her eyes. Waris was mutilated when she was only 3 years old. The same was done to her sisters. Now it's clear why the neighbor spends so much time in the bathroom. Marilyn shows her how it should be. It's not necessary to do that to be a woman. They don't do that to anyone here. Terry started a conversation with Waris again. According to him, the girl doesn't even realize how beautiful she is. Waris is surprised why her friend eats cat food. Rose. She shows Marilyn a business card. Marilyn immediately perks up. Terry Donaldson is a very famous photographer and Waris can earn a ton of money. Marilyn also has something to show her friend. Harold from the club left his address in case Waris ends up in New York. Joy turned to sadness. What will he say when he sees that she is different there? Suddenly, Varia's stomach hurt badly and Marilyn took her to the hospital. The gynecologist was extremely surprised when he saw how everything was arranged there for the girl and put aside the tools. "I cannot give back what was taken from you," says the doctor, "but I can make it so it no longer causes you pain." They brought in a nurse who speaks Somali. He needs to translate that it is too narrow there and urgent surgery is needed. She was mutilated by a real butcher. to show this white person her body. Our traditions do not concern them at all. The doctor is surprised that she endured this for so long. An African says she will betray her people and her tribe, shaming her mother. Because of this, Waris simply stood up and left. Walking down the street, she stared at a woman in a hijab with only her eyes visible behind the fabric. We return to the past. Waris complains to her mother that there's blood and pain down there. It hurts. That's good. She became a woman. Soon she was brought to the yellow-toothed old man, who immediately began to reach for her with his hands. Tomorrow the girl will become his fourth wife. All that Waris can do is wipe away her bitter tears. There is nothing to be done. A lot was paid for her. At night, the girl decided to run away to Mogadishu to her grandmother. She promises her little brother that she will find him and take him away later. The mother did not stop her daughter. But the path through the rocky desert is not easy at all. Waris tore her feet to blood. However, despite this, the next day she continued to go to the capital. Seeing a shrub, the girl immediately pounced on it and began to gnaw a branch. The poor creature cries and thinks of her mother. Completely exhausted, Waris emerged onto the highway where a truck driver picked her up. He tried to take advantage of her, but the girl fought back, specifically with a rock to his head. Once she reached Mogadishu, Waris found her grandmother and was finally able to eat. The woman believes that the child, having made such a difficult and dangerous journey, has a chance in this life and has no reason to return. The grandmother is much richer than the mother because she fled to the desert to become the wife of an ordinary nomad. After thinking it over, Waris returned to the hospital where she had surgery. Her friend came to visit her. Finally, Waris came to the studio of a famous photographer. "And how much will you pay me?" the girl asked first. She is determined to live better. Terry Donaldson started working. Waris squints hard at each camera flash. But the photographer is patient. He distracts her with conversations about family. With a finished portfolio, Waris went to a modeling agency. After all, being a model is better than being a cleaner. When asked if she knows how to walk, Waris replied, "Of course, I made it to Mogadishu." The girl put on high-heeled shoes and now walks on them as if on stilts. Lucinda does not understand why Waris carries that awful bag. She is hiding something in it, but what she really needs to hide are the scars on her legs. Lucinda paid for Waris's taxi to come to the casting. Among the large number of candidates, she has an advantage because she is endorsed by Donaldson himself. After a series of photo sessions, Lucinda promises Waris that she has a great future ahead. First Paris, then 2 companies in America. In the meantime, Arlissa Marilyn hopes to get a job at a dance studio, but she realizes she has no chance of competing with the other dancers. Waris gives her a gift, expensive Gucci watch. For big shows, it's worth learning to walk, which is what Waris was doing in the dormitory hallway under the guidance of the Englishwoman. Suddenly, an enraged Lucinda arrived at the boarding house and called Waris an illegal immigrant. Her passport expired 6 years ago, and now she will be deported back to the desert. Suddenly, Nilapori Yakshansa Sabarevli Nil got down on one knee and proposed to the Somali woman to marry him for the sake of the papers. This would solve her problem, but that wasn't necessary. Pushpa knows someone who can forge the documents. Waris O'Sullivan is ready to go to Paris for a party with Johnny Depp, but right at the airport, the police detained the girl. In the cell, the model remembers how her grandmother sent her to England to find work as a maid. The girl says goodbye to her homeland with tears in her eyes, leaving her younger brother here after all. From the airport, she was taken to the Somali embassy, where she lives in a small cage-like room and spends her days cleaning. No one taught her English. 6 years went by like this. After this time, there was a coup in Somalia. The embassy staff were recalled back to the country, but Waris was not planning to return anywhere. She unearthed the hidden passport and stepped out onto the streets of London. Bail was posted for Waris, and she only needed to get 1 stamp in 6 months, and she would have received political asylum. Now she has a limited resident permit. Must check in every week, 1 violation, and she will be deported. Advertisements featuring Waris are shown on billboards and large screens. Lucinda is angry but confident that Waris will earn back every penny of the £10,000 she spent on the best lawyer in London. Pushpa apologizes for putting the Somali woman in such a position. Waris needs to work and she still decides to take the risk of marriage. Neil promises not to bother the girl, but Marilyn clearly doesn't like the idea. Neil says that they are obliged to live together. and also sleep in the same bed, as the guys from the immigration service might show up at any moment. Time to repay the debt. There's a big team working in the studio, but when Terry arrived, he asked everyone to leave. Waris will have to pose nude for the calendar. The girl obediently undressed. The photographer promises that if everything goes well, it will change her life. Waris trusts the professional, and this helped her relax. She dreams of meeting Harold again, but in reality, there is some news. Bill, who calls her his wife, yells, criticizes, and gropes her. One night, immigration officers burst into the apartment. They search every room. Anil took the moment and kissed Vari on the lips. To her friend, she says that she would rather be deported to Somalia. She doesn't know how she will endure living with Neil for another year. Now, she is forced to sleep in the same bed with him. And the Englishman is crazy about the model. Soon Varis received a notification of an indefinite residence permit. She thanked Neil and immediately took the ring off her finger. Finally, Vari will be able to work peacefully around the world. She conquers runways in many countries and becomes a true professional in her field. The fashionista now lives in an expensive New York apartment and eats properly. She remembered Harold again and came to him at the address provided. The young man didn't immediately recognize her revamped appearance. Then Harold's girlfriend approached. Waris was embarrassed and immediately ran away. Alas, a lot of time has passed, and her dreams were shattered by reality. Lucinda is outraged that Waris dropped everything and went to Somalia to film a documentary about herself called The Day That Changed My Life. Returning to America, Waris gives an interview and says that it was not the day she met photographer Terry Donaldson. She is actually tired of these stories, like from a nomadic girl to a top model. Waris wants to tell a story and hopes it will be published. Vari will remember the day when at the age of 3, she went on a journey with her mother. In the desert, they met the same woman butcher who performed the monstrous operation with a dirty blade and a thorny branch. The wound was infected. The girl developed a fever. Where there were genitals, only a large scar and an opening the size of a match head remained. Everything that was cut off was eaten by birds. Harold is sitting in a cafe, upset that he couldn't understand anything when a girl came to him, and at that moment he was entering the apartment with his neighbor. And then he saw an interview in a magazine with Waris about the tragedy of female circumcision. Waris herself is preparing to give a speech at the UN headquarters. Her friend came to support her. Later, Harold also came here. For more than 3,000 years, families in Africa have been convinced that an uncircumcised daughter is impure, that what is between the legs is impure, and therefore it needs to be removed and sewn up. On the first wedding night, the groom takes a blade and makes an incision before entering the bride. Uncut girls are expelled from the village and equated with prostitutes. This continues, even though the procedure is not mandated by the Quran. After it, girls remain sick both physically and mentally for life. One of Waris's sisters did not survive the cutting. She bled to death, the second died during childbirth. In childhood, Waris did not want to be a woman. It is very painful and sad, but now she is proud of who she has become. Worldwide, 130 million women suffer from the consequences of circumcision. Waris Dirie became the first woman to draw attention to this issue. In 1997, she was appointed a UN ambassador to combat this terrible ritual. Since then, female circumcision has been banned in many countries. However, despite this, more than 6,000 girls are mutilated every day.